Well, good afternoon. My name is Eliel Hinojosa Jr. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Curriculum and Instruction and in the College of Education. And I'd like to introduce Anna Rasberry. Anna Rasberry served as an undergraduate fellow for the Voices of Service Erath County Veterans Legacy Project. And she'll be taking a big bulk of this presentation today. It's really important for me to elevate students, and I think a lot of the faculty, hopefully many of the faculty, endorse that idea. So Anna will talk about her reflections related to the project. She'll share about the project, and then I'll interject here and there. But before we do that, I wanted to share also Jessica Green. So Jessica Green was also an undergraduate fellow with the project, but Jessica Green is no longer a pre-service teacher. She's still in the College of Education, but as a graduate student, she's an agricultural education teacher at Eaton High School. Don't ask me the school district, but it's a few hours north of here. So she was also integral to the success of the program. And hopefully you'll be able to hear from her later. She recorded a message. I'm not sure how that's going to work. If it plays, great. If it doesn't, we'll move on from there. But Anna Rasberry and Jessica Green by far made this project the success that it has been, and it will hopefully continue to be.
We're gonna go ahead and get started. You're gonna notice there's two types of voices of project. He'll cover the second one. I'm gonna cover this one. This is voices of service, and the main goal with this one was to preserve local veteran stories, so those in Erath County. And the goals and objectives first was to foster civic engagement and historical inquiry through direct interaction with Erath County veterans. So it was for several of them that we lined up interviews for. We actually got to meet them we went to a Legion meeting, and then the three of us went to a Memorial Day service. So it was actually direct contact with them and being able to set up appointments. And others it's in-person interviews. So it's very one-on-one, very personable, and very interactive. And again, the historical inquiry, you'll notice with the interview questions in front of the majority of y'all, it's inquiry, it's questions about these veterans and their lives. And throughout the process, we documented and preserved their personal testimonies, and we used all the gadgets you see over here to preserve that and gather that, but it's being processed and preserved, and it's going to be on a YouTube channel, for lack of a better word. And it's public, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Just to interject really quickly, also, as the social studies methodologist, the idea behind preparing pre-service teachers for potential careers in social studies as social studies teachers means that we're looking for ways to get them into social studies. I promise you, you have all engaged in history and social studies by looking at a PowerPoint and taking a bunch of notes. And that made it super exciting for you while you're in there, right? No, I should see a lot of latitudinal direction kind of nodding, right? So that's not what social studies is. I mean, there is a time and place for direct instruction, don't get me wrong, but the idea of getting our teachers into classrooms and then having them make connections, I'm not sure what this says here.
Okay, got it.
Got it? Okay. Having them make connections with their students into the community, right, is incredibly important because social studies is something that we do. It's about taking informed action, right? It's about voting. By the way, early voting opened up today in, here for city council and stuff. So it's about that kind of thing. It's about really taking the kind of action that gets our students and our pre-service teachers into the community involved. As part of the project, one of the things that Anna talked about was the development of TEKS-aligned inquiries. Now, you've probably seen, maybe, depending on your field, like pages of lesson plans. One of the things that we do in the EDUC 3395 course, which is a social studies methods course, is I work on getting students to look through social studies through an inquiry lens. And the idea is if we can ask big questions, then we can engage students more, right? As opposed to what I mentioned, which is PowerPoint slides, sort of the instructor hiding behind kind of the bullet points, and then students frantically taking notes, right? That was my experience in large part too. Now, asking a compelling question, this is an inquiry from the Voices of Service YouTube page. So this one is connected to J.J. Conway's interview. But the idea here, and I'll share the compelling question with you because you can't see this, is are the experiences of women who served in the WASP program, the Women Air Service pilots, different from women currently in active duty? So that's the bigger question here. And then there's a TEKS connection here, the standards, and what TEKS stands for is the Texas Essential of Knowledge and Skills, right? So that's we as teacher educators and as future teachers, those are the standards by content area that we're utilizing, with regard to what to teach, not necessarily how to teach it, but what to teach. There are sources here. This teacher, who's one of the folks working on the project, who's a social studies teacher at Gilbert Intermediate, identified two sources, one of which is JJ's interview. So this is the oral history connection. And then three higher level, everybody's heard of Bloom's taxonomy, three higher level Bloom's verbs, which include deliberate, collaborate, and produce, and then an instructional snapshot. That's it. A half landscape page or a landscape page, which is super easy for teachers to do. It's designed to be done in about 45 minutes. So I wanted to share what are those, because those are actually still happening as Amanda Stanfield works on these. And it's connected to the interviews that are populated on the Voices of Service YouTube channel.
So I got involved with Voices. I needed an honors contract, and long story short, I am out of courses I can take in the honors college. I was like, hey, I need a project. And I decided to talk to Dr. Hinojosa last spring, and he had just started working on Voices. And so I got involved, and that's how I met Jessica. And it was much, much different than I initially anticipated. For starters, I didn't even know what oral history was to begin. So that was a learning curve in and all of itself. But I got to learn more about the IRB process, which came in handy. I'm currently working on my thesis. So that was really nice. But I also got to learn more about the kind of connections and how you can, because my social studies experience was that in Studies Weekly, and those can get boring. And so it was interesting to see the way that you can pull in the community, but also when I hear the word research, I think of, more STEM related things and how research can be more interactive among people in your community. And it was just really fun. I had a blast at the Legion meeting. Old timers are the best timers. They're really cool to hang out with. But also the Memorial Day service, it's so nice to just hang out with people who have that kind of mindset. And so it was more learning just how to connect community and everything, but also excited there's a way to teach the standards on the TEKS that's not required of a PowerPoint or a Studies Weekly. So that's really cool, and I'm really excited to see that. So why is this significant? It starts with, again, preserving the lived experience of Erath County veterans and ensuring their voices contribute to community memory and their broader historical records. So whether they're seeing these when the inquiry frameworks first go out or it's 50 years from now, they're still able to see the legacy. It's, oh, I'm an Erath County student, I'm at Gilbert Intermediate, and I get to see a video of someone that my grandfather went to school with or he knew or things like that. So it's much more based on legacy instead of, well, I have to read this snippet out of the textbook my teacher said to, and it's talking about this person. I have no idea who they are, but I was told to do it, so I might do it kind of mentality, because I know when we get to these level, students are like, I don't want to. But another part of it also is that, again, it's community-based, so it's that legacy. There's more of a personal connection. And it also highlights the importance of oral history as a method for capturing diverse personal perspectives, often missing from traditional archives. Again, I didn't even know what this was. I know there's people out there who aren't quite sure what oral history was, and it's also much more engaging than making your kids read a snippet out of a textbook. And then it expands access to making veteran stories available to future generations, educators, and researchers. So with it being in public infrastructure, there's a way where if I pick up that inquiry framework, I can pull from these. And one thing in the YouTube, there's the whole interview, and then there's themed segments. So if you just want to get your kids to watch part of it and they reflect on, well, I watched the part of why they chose the service, the branch of service they did, or talk about their getting back into civilian life. What was that about? So they can emphasize and focus, because a 45-minute block, some of these interviews are over that time, but they're able to kind of break it down and focus on certain areas. And then it also demonstrates how local oral history projects can strengthen civic engagement and deepen understanding. And Dr. H and I both have kind of talked about that, but it's deeper and more engaging for students. And that's what we're looking for as teachers, and that's what the kids are looking for in class.
And those emergent themes came out of those interviews themselves. And you'll see that when we shift to our live interview portion, our veteran just walked into the room. When we shift to our live interview portion for this, you'll be able to hear how some of these social tags might develop or emerge naturally out of the interview questions themselves. Let's see if Jessica's plays.
Hearing their stories gave me a deeper understanding of what it truly means to serve something bigger than yourself. It's easy for us to sit back and say that we understand the service and the sacrifice of those from a textbook or by watching war documentaries or going to, Memorial Day ceremonies. But sitting back and hearing their stories and what the service meant to them and what their time abroad was like truly shifted my thinking and my understanding of what service meant to me. Through those interviews, I learned how to genuinely listen, not just respond, but to understand what they are telling me. And through that, I'm notorious for being horrible at sitting back and listening and just letting somebody finish their story. I am the first one to interrupt, to jump in, and to just try to share my stories too, because, I get you. But at the end of the day, we wanted the veterans' testimony. We didn't want a conversation caught on camera. Some of the stories that we were told and that the veterans chose to share with us carried a lot of weight, and that challenged me to grow in empathy and patience. Learning how to sit there and hold space for somebody who is sharing their absolute worst day of their life and seeing a grown man cry in a room with somebody that they just met was a major social emotional learning moment for me, because I'm an empathetic person, but learning how to effectively respond, react, and support somebody through that moment on camera and they are just being so vulnerable is a pivotal learning point. It reminded me that everyone has experiences that shape who they are, and those experiences deserve respect. As a pre-service teacher, that really shifted my mindset. I stopped seeing students as learners in a classroom and started seeing them as individuals with their own stories, challenges, and strengths. And frankly, it reminded me of how my teachers reacted whenever I was a high schooler who had just gone through a traumatic event in my life, because I was struggling and my teachers stepped up and saw me as more than just a student in their class who is there to learn. It made me more intentional about building relationships with students and creating an environment where students feel heard and valued. Now, I am a high school agriculture teacher, and I have students of all sorts of needs, whether it be economic, whether it be social, and so on and so forth. Just like I had to build trust with my veterans that I interviewed, I have to work to build trust with my students. I have to focus on being present, listening, and showing them that they matter beyond just their performance in class. That experience didn't just make me a better communicator, it made me more empathetic and purposeful educator. I had a student the other day who was telling me about troubles that she had and all of her issues that she's currently having in her personal life. And at the end of it, she just kind of flipped a switch and said, "Oh, but it's all just teenage drama. Oh, but it's just high school drama." And I kind of shocked myself with my response whenever I said, "But that's your lived experience. That's your life right now." Because the old me would have been like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That's terrible," and kind of left it at that. But that response, she kind of just stumbled back and she was like, "Well, yeah, that is my life right now. You're right." And it kind of made her feel not alone in that moment and feel seen and heard. And I truly don't think that I would have had that reaction to her had I not have been in Voices of Service, because I would have completely responded differently other than, "Well, but that's your lived experience right now." She doesn't know what big adult issues are. She hasn't lived that yet.
Bet you'd want Jessica Green as one of your kids' teachers, right? And that's the kind of teacher that we're trying to prepare in curriculum and instruction.
So for classroom usage, we've touched on some of this already, but it's project-based learning. So it's going to engage students in hands-on history work and making that learning meaningful. So again, they're choosing the snippet they're watching and they're truly watching it and they're reflecting on it. And it's just much more, and throughout the project-based learning, whether it's the same veteran or they're comparing, it's much more interactive than said chapter. Community connection, again, it's connecting the students to the community and giving them opportunities to learn from lived-in experiences. So it's kind of like Jessica talked about, even if that student is that you have a lived experience, everyone in this room has a lived experience, and we can learn from one another. And social studies is more than just history. There's all the different domains of it, but part of it is social and society, and there's all the stories that get us to where we're at, and they're all interwoven, and it's for students to understand that within their community, which also just makes communities more tight and so lovely. For skill development, it builds 21st century skills, including critical thinking, interviewing, collaboration, and digital literacy. So whether students are ever involved in collecting oral history or watching the process or just viewing it, they're learning how to, they go on YouTube and they find a video or whatever way their teacher has that set up. And then they're actually thinking whether they have compelling questions or they generate questions of their own. They're watching that video and they're really thinking about it more than, oh, well, here's the question in the text. They don't necessarily have that, and that's that more higher quality thinking that these students have to do. And again, digital literacy, we need that in this day and age of students. And then character and citizenship education is reinforcing values such as respect, historical empathy, and civic responsibility, and developing well-rounded, informed citizens. And again, it's these students just really noticing these things. And we've all seen it as more tech we get, which is important for students to know how to use it. It's not going anywhere, is that we've sort of lost that connection with other humans, right? It's more than just, okay, you have to make eye contact with me. You have to know how to talk. And like interviews, like, I don't know if y'all, there's been some scary statistics about interviews, but it's them just learning how to communicate and talk and learn more. There's no rule about, oh, well, you're 16, I'm 11. There's nothing about that. It's them really understanding how to connect, and that's just going to make them understand so much more. So by the time they do reach that high school age and they're getting their first jobs or they're going to school, they really know how to communicate with quote unquote older people that aren't grandma and grandpa, because they've had these abilities, but they've also learned more about the people who make our country safe and free like it is compared to other countries who don't have those values. And it also just teaches them the importance of their civic responsibility, because I can tell you, I didn't get a lot of that outside of home, and home, yes. And so having this instilled back in the classroom, I feel like will give social studies more quote unquote value back, because we know K through 3 we don't have a lot of emphasis on it, so we're trying to catch up in our later grades. And so yeah.
So the model, like what does this look like? The idea being that there are 4 core parts of this: the foundation, the pedagogical core, the relational layer, and then the culminating layer. Now, for the veterans, we're talking about looking at models that have worked, and the Veterans Legacy Project is by far, I would say it's the world's largest repository of veteran oral histories that's sponsored by the Library of Congress. The great thing about that is it is the world's largest repository of veteran oral histories. The not so great thing about that is it's the world's largest repository of veteran oral histories, and the Library of Congress staff can't possibly process all those. What Anna was talking about with regard to the clips, we live in a competitive digital space. The idea being that there is not time for a teacher to have students scrub through a 45, 55, hour and a half long veteran interview. Instead, what we've done is we've looked at, and this comes from my work with the Korean War Legacy Foundation, is that we've looked at emergent themes to develop 3 to 5 minute clips that are usable immediately in classrooms, right? And that makes us competitive in the competitive digital space. I'll talk about the Folk Life and Fieldwork Guide as it relates to Voices of Community, which is the other Voices project we'll talk about after this one. And then also Sharon Rayner's work of practicing oral history with military and war veterans has informed this work too. So that's the foundation here. In terms of inquiries being the driver in the pedagogical core, this is where we start to insert our pre-service teachers using inquiry questions to guide the interviews, because they're questions, right? But then getting that to matter for my students as they ask questions in general. Okay, it's always better to ask questions. And even I, as an inquiry methodologist, sometimes don't take swings at the ones that come right across the plate, right? And so my colleague, Dr. Limberis, is laughing because he observed me not letting the inquiry drive it. And I do that, right, as a practitioner. Pre-service teachers are engaging as investigators, not just recorders. So the narrator, who will be Dr. Mallory today, and the inquirer, right? This is not designed to be a conversation. It's designed to ask a question and for the narrator or the person whose history we're taking to contribute. The emphasis on multiple perspectives, interpretation, and meaning is super important. Getting multiple perspectives from multiple different kinds of veterans. You'll notice that Rayner's work talks about military and war veterans, and that's specific to folks who served in a supporting role and folks who served in a combat role. Okay. The next layer, the relational layer, is using community members as collaborators, not just subjects, right? We're really good at being transactional. Hey, I need something from you. I want to go jump into your school district and look at data and stuff like that. This is what my IRB says. Sign a consent form. I got my stuff. I'm out. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in real relationships. We're looking at reciprocity here. In other words, I want people to know in the community to know that we're invested and interested in them on an ongoing basis. Okay. And then integration with local schools. And you'll see some of the culinary programs and stuff come later with the Voices of Community project. And then finally, the public humanities output. The digital archive housed in YouTube, that's easy for public humanities like digital output. It's accessible by everybody. The public events and showcases. We're going to show you some pictures of one that you may have attended, and if you didn't attend, you'll get an opportunity to attend the next one on Veterans Day 2026. And then also cross-disciplinary projects, which we'll talk about a little bit more when we talk about Voices of Community. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Andrea.
So November 11th of 2025, we had a concert to honor and tribute to the veterans. We had interviewed veterans in the area and just a really great community event. I don't know if y'all have been in the fine arts building, but you know where like the glass area is where they have all the art stuff, that little hallway? There was lots of people, which was a really good thing, but it just showed how much community came together. And then so there's Dr. Westbrook with the symphonic band, and then the Tarleton State Choir, and they're all singing together. And there was pictures of all the veterans that knew were going to be in attendance. They sent in pictures, and so that was playing on repeat, which was really cool.
And notice the shirts. Dr. Westbrook wanted Anna's wearing her Voices of Service shirts, and that was a whole idea from Dr. Westbrook, and it became so. You see how this was a $2,500 grant. Now we didn't have any money to buy all this stuff. We were supported across campus, but it was incredibly intercollegiate.
And then, as you can see, there's people in the audience. Mrs. Westbrook, Dr. Westbrook's wife, and her junior high choir, Colonel Simon, and then Dr. Langen speaking.
And then we had Dr. Simon or Colonel Simon up at the top speaking as well.
And then there's myself speaking, Jessica speaking, and then there's a picture of Dr. Hurley, Dr. Hinojosa, Jessica, myself, and then Senator Birdwell. That was pretty cool. And then this one, I initially went to the audience before I went backstage, and every seat was filled, and at the back, everybody was standing up and around the sides. That was really cool, very nerve-wracking to speak in front of, but it was just an awesome opportunity to see Erath County or Stephenville, Texas, which when you say, I go to Tarleton, it's Stephenville, people go, where? So it was really awesome just to see the entire community come together, and I knew people from surrounding counties who came as well, and that was really awesome.
You know, there's a couple of ways historians sometimes write, and I'm not a professional historian. I get to play in all these spaces as a social studies person, but sometimes historians write for other historians, and that's okay. I'm not interested in that kind of writing. I'm interested in that kind of writing personally, but when it comes to the kinds of access that I want people to have with regard to history and social studies in general, it's important that those don't live on dusty shelves, right? If an oral history goes into the ether, and I mean the internet, and that space becomes a digital cemetery, well, I'm not sure that we've done a whole lot of good. Teachers, our future teachers, are the communicators of legacy, right? And it's important because they have those kids, and that's why that position is so has so much responsibility around it, because they, as social studies teachers or potential history teachers, will or won't communicate legacy as memory, right, across time. So now, while veterans are a subset of the community, Voices of Community or Erath County Oral History Project looks at and wants to interview and is interviewing folks from the community itself, right? Erath County in particular. Here again, the goals and objectives are similar in terms of one, preserving local history, building educator capacity, right? And showing them that place-based education connected with inquiry-based learning is an extremely great way of getting their students into the community, right? It takes us a lot. We've gone to the Dallas Holocaust Museum. I've taken students to the DFW National Cemetery this semester. I just got back from Washington on the Brazos with our RELS students. So there's been a lot of movement. And as a rural community, as an RPU here, right, we have to find ways to value our own local history. Going to the cemetery is one way to do that, right? Interacting with our community members is another way to do that, our local veterans, et cetera. And this also fosters civic engagement. We do a lot of things related to civic engagement, but do we do them with intention, right? Are excellence, integrity, and respect, our core values here at Tarleton, like actually intentionally placed into what we do? And then to what extent do we strengthen our partnerships with the surrounding community? Do they just know Tarleton is the folks who wanted to rename Harbin University? Or is the connection much stronger than that, right? And I'm after the latter. So in terms of partnerships, what you see here is you see a Voices of Community showcase, which I will extend an invitation to all of you who came, is we're having I'll share with you our invitation is our showcase is our Voices of Community project is connected for pre-service teachers through foodways. So trying to find a way that makes it relevant for a teacher who may be teaching in our early childhood through 6 program to make an oral history connection is super easy when we talk about what's on your Thanksgiving table. And all of you will have similar things, but then all of you might have some differences. And if you have a significant other, that significant other might have brought other things as that culture was diffused from them into your table. Well, we're interested in what recipes are being brought by our interviewees. And we're connected with the Stephenville ISD Culinary Arts folks who've just gone through their first round of making those recipes. So here you can see Dr. Lunyon, who's also has a photography sort of freelance business on the side, taking pictures of some of the first savory and sweet items that were given, and then we're doing another round this Thursday before they make everything en masse for our large community showcase on May 5th at Champion Hall. Here at the top, you see Elizabeth Johnson. Elizabeth Johnson has been the director of Erath County Meals on Wheels for a long time. I can't tell you how many tens of thousands of meals that they've delivered to senior folks across Erath County. It's incredible the work that Meals on Wheels are doing. And this is Betty, and now what's interesting about here, I can't miss this, is this is in the 3rd floor of the Howe building. What you're not seeing is you're not seeing 25 students who are watching this interview take place, right? Here, this is Gary and Betty Key. We're at their home. They're students that you can't see either. They're kind of in your position while I'm interviewing them. And they've been longtime benefactors of Tarleton State University. They've been in Erath County for 30 years. They're everything Tarleton, but they're not Tarleton alumni, right? They're alumni of UTA, but they're all purple, right? In fact, I was just on a general scholarship meeting where we're talking about where to give their money to which students this morning. So the point is that these folks are super interactive in Erath County, very focused on the Morgan Mill area in Tarleton, and very focused on the entirety of the county with Meals on Wheels.
Gary's at every tailgate.
Yes, they're always around. Like anything, just really quickly, there's challenges, right? The primary hurdle that we have is funding. Oral history doesn't take much. It takes a phone. Everybody has an app for a voice memo, setting that phone down and asking questions of the narrator or the interviewee. What you're seeing here is you're seeing gear, right? And if you're a gearhead for whatever it is you do, then you can appreciate that. But there's a cost incurred with this, and every element that you add, be it audio and video and lighting and all these kinds of things, brings a complication, like complications on a watch, that could go wrong. Right? So that's a challenge. Another challenge is whether or not people want to tell their stories. One challenge that I'm having currently right now is that many of Wendy Ivy's students are Hispanic students. I am focused on trying to get diverse perspectives. Sorry, I said a bad word. Diverse perspectives is part of our Voices of Community project. Many of her students are Hispanic students who have Hispanic parents. Go figure, right? Well, they want to give recipes, but I'm not sure if they want to be interviewed on camera because I'm not sure if they want their names out there, right? Okay, so that's a challenge. But they're going to contribute recipes and they're going to taste great. The point is there are many challenges, and probably the biggest challenge with regard to being a practitioner is that my initial idea around Voices of Community was to get my students involved in interviewing. But the scheduling challenge of connecting them with interviewees, with me, with all this stuff just became too much, right? So the alternative was one of my social studies methods courses went out to Gary and Betty's home in Morgan Mill, and we did that there. And the second was the interview on the 3rd floor of Howe with Elizabeth Johnson from Meals on Wheels. So they were able to be involved in that. And my Thursday class will fill these seats on Thursday when we redo this and then interview Ted Roberts as the interviewee. So are there any quick questions that we have before we transition right into modeling our veteran interview? Okay, I'm going to introduce Dr. Blake Mallory. He's an assistant professor of counseling here at Tarleton State. This is his rookie year. Amazing guy. Yep.
Oh, stop silly.
So, okay, so what we have here is we just more lights better, right? And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Dr. Leach and then even Santi here. We have a studio in one of the associate dean's offices. I'd like to joke that it only took me a year to get into the associate dean's office, right? But anyway, seriously, we provided a lot of resources to be able to do on-campus interviews. What Blake is doing is put a microphone on. Anna's got her microphone on. She's going to sit here. The light's on Blake. We've got the camera here, and Anna is going to model for you a veteran oral history, and I'm going to produce it.
Do you want me to be a veteran or anything else? Veteran. Out is nasty.
And this is something else too, is that when we have veterans here, how much do we censor them? And the answer is not much at all, right? So. You're recording.
What is your name?
I am Blake Mallory.
Where and when were you born?
Palestine, Texas, 1984.
Who were your parents and what would they do as a living?
So my mom is Pam Mallory. She is a jack of all trades. She used to work for Cost for Kids, forensic interviewers, all kinds of different things like that, service related. My dad was more of a kind of a hands-on guy. His name was Philip McGee, and he basically kind of builds, I think, sheds and building. I don't have contact with him anymore, but that's the last time I heard. So.
What did your schooling look like growing up, K through 12?
I was all gas, no brake. I had literally all the energy in the world. So it was a place where it was restrictive but structured, but also kind of fun. You got to really be social, which I needed. It was fun. I mean, I did bare minimum just to get eligibility to play sports, really. So.
What sports did you play?
Name it. I tried to dabble at a little bit, but kind of my claim to fame was basketball and also soccer. Played at a high level ODP team, Olympic development program team, stuff like that.
Did you go to college or did you go straight into military?
Lady, I'm still in it. No, I'm kidding. So right out of high school, I went to the Marine Corps, served then, and then when I got back, I went to a junior college to get my GPA up because that's kind of needed, to further your career in academia. So rightfully so, I went to try to get my GPA up. Then I went to Texas A&M, and then for my master's, I went to Texas Tech for counseling, education, and supervision, and then right into my PhD program.
Awesome. So. Before entering the service, did you have any kind of jobs that you did?
Oh, yeah. My first job, I think, was screen printing at like a sports jersey place for all the like sports leagues in the area. I was like 13, outside of mowing yards and stuff like that. That was kind of like my first job. And then got into the service industry as far as like food, restaurant, busing, cooking, serving, that kind of stuff. Socially, it was just what I was drawn to and naturally gifted at, I think. So it was fun.
When did you join the military?
2003.
Did you enlist?
I did, right out of high school.
And what branch of military are you?
Marine Corps, the only branches of note. Kidding, don't tell them. But they know the truth.
Why did you join the Marine Corps?
Honestly, that competitive spirit, and also our nation call. Instead of transitioning into playing sports or pursuing scholarships or anything like that, I felt like our nation called. So I felt like it was our time for our generation to kind of step up and answer that call. So I had a lot of positive influence as far as military family members and, mentors, things like that had service. So with that, it was my time to kind of like pursue that. And then after that, I was going to kind of figure it out. But it was a gateway to, one, to travel, two, to learn new skills and techniques and strategies on how to be useful, but also how to serve your country and what it truly means to serve. But the Marine Corps was one of those things that I knew it was competitive. This was before like YouTube, where you could see people like thrashing people. But it was, I wouldn't even cared. Like it was the standard I was seeking, the structure. My parents, they got divorced at 13, so it was really hard. It was hard for my mom to really raise a man. So I had to kind of figure everything out at home, because she was working 2 jobs, 3 jobs at some junctures to really just kind of keep a roof over her head. So that was kind of where I felt like I really wanted to pursue it if I was going to do it, So
What is your most vivid memory of your training?
vivid memory of my training. If it's not raining, we ain't training. Miserable conditions. They really try to mimic what it would be like to be uncomfortable, to do hard things, and to do it when you're tired. So they really had a good idea of what it was like to really duplicate what it might look like on the battlefield, and then how to operate efficiently and effectively while utilizing your chain of command, your Marine to your left and to your right, and also get very intimate with your equipment. If it can go wrong, it will. So how do you adapt? How do you evolve? How do you get creative with trying to find solutions in real time?
What was the best part of your training?
The uniforms. Pretty awesome. Marine Corps balls gangster. No, the best part was the people. You wanted to shoot them yourself most of the time, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't allow anybody else to do it. So that was probably morbid, but they're my boys. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I think it would be the people.
What was your first assignment after basic training or boot camp?
Outside of training, I was stationed at Camp Pendleton, California. I went to an artillery unit, which was 2nd Battalion, 11th Marines, 1st Marine Division. And what we were doing would be kind of like a lottery system. So we would all show up on buses, the new guys, the green guys, right? The boots. So basically they would have like just tons of Marines that were salty, that had been there a long time, just catcalling us, just trying to make us nervous. But anyway, we would actually get together, have meetings and interviews, and then we go to our selected branch of service based on fit, military training experiences and scores and things like that, and really kind of gave a well-rounded kind of selection process to where we went after that. But that was the first memory, stepping foot on Camp Pendleton after training. It was super, super judgmental. Love it.
What was the hardest thing for you to adapt to when you entered the service?
I would have to say the amount of negative reinforcement. Obviously, in my life growing up, being in sports, being with a broken home and other just family members and stuff like that, negative reinforcement was the golden standard. So that wasn't the trick, but it was trying to meet everybody's expectations while developing as a young man, right? So not only are you trying to have a just stellar career, but you're also not real sure what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to go. You're having to learn the jobs above you and below you. So I felt like that was something that was an extreme challenge, but something that changed me forever. So.
Were you in a combat zone or in a support role?
Office setting. No, I'm kidding. So combat zone, we went to 2004, 2005. That was the deployment for Operation Phantom Fury, which we were kicking indoors in Fallujah. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's pretty salty. It was the bloodiest battle in American history since Way City. So that was another moment where you kind of like had to stand back and look. There's nothing that can prepare you for this. You know, the smells, the sights, the temperament, the cadence, the reps. Really, I mean, you're doing everything tired. So, and then after that was 05, 06. So that was the Battle of Ramadi. So it was just back to back to back. Pretty heavy combat, convoy escort, convoy security, kicking indoors, everything to provisioner, rifleman company, to doing all kinds of prisoner transport, stuff like that. So you were always on the go. I think we completed so many missions. A lot of Marines got medals for it because how high the cadence was for our battle tempo.
Throughout the entirety of your service, how many deployments did you complete?
2. Those are the 2 of note. I was going to the 3rd one, but then ended up not extending my enlistment because I wanted to come back to get an education so I can further that and see where I could go, either as officer corps or something useful for veterans coming back home and how to help them transition. But
Did you serve in a leadership capacity during your service or
I
deployment?
did. I picked up sergeant, which I was the section head for our trucks and our guns. I was a machine gun instructor, firearms instructor, doing a lot of different things at the small unit leadership. In the Marine Corps, there's a lot of different ranks, but the corporal and sergeant is the backbone of the Marine Corps. So what that means is it allows you to get everything from leadership down, but it's your job to execute it in real time. So you're the one who carries out the missions. Then you have staff, which is just above that, but that's where they kind of like guide you and let you do your own thing and manage your own teams. But it's our job to really relay the information, make sure they're equipped and always lethal. So make sure they're prepared, make sure they had the tools to be successful. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Is there any memorable incident that you would like to share, good or bad?
Not that my mom can hear. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, one of the coolest stories I've ever heard about is, you know, how like you have the Marine Corps kind of like competitiveness, right? But structure and things like that. Not everybody can do that. Well, not everybody wants to do that, and rightfully so. But it's a small gun club. So where I come from is Tyler, Texas. It is a very small town in East Texas. And I had already gone through my first deployment, and then I was able to persuade, not very hard, but my best friend Cliff. What was really cool about that transition was he didn't have, like I always looked up to him my whole life, right? Because he was a little bit older than me. He was a stellar soccer player as well. We did the same pipeline. So the reason that I felt like this was a very pivotal moment was it was right after my first deployment and in between my second deployment. Well, he ended up deciding to become a Marine. He was 21. I went in at 17, almost 18, by the time I went to boot camp. And he ended up becoming honor guide. So I'm there trying to like celebrate him. I'm in my outfit, my uniform of the day. And I have all my medals, ribbons, all this stuff. And again, if you know anything about the Marine Corps, it's attention to detail. So you go above and beyond to buy like the expensive stuff if you're in the fleet and you've been in a while. Plus there's boards, you're competitive, you're trying to compete for promotion. So you get the nicest stuff. So I had my Creighton shirt on, I was locked on, had my vinyl cover, and in boot camp they give you this like horrible cotton cover. You can see everything through it. It's horrible. So the cover's a hat, right? So anyway, I'm sitting there waiting on the day to kicked off. Families are coming, and I'm here sitting there waiting to wait on his family. Of course, I knew him my whole life. I've known him since I was 6. So anyway, as he's coming up, I'm waiting. There's this drill instructor, pretty like frantic. And of course, my experience with drill instructor, they always had an answer. They always had a response. So I was like, uh-oh, am I in trouble? Is my stuff locked on or whatever? And he's like, hey, Devil Dog, you got a second? I was like, yeah, what's going on, Staff Sergeant? And he was like, I see you have a vinyl cover. Do you happen to know what your cover size is? I said, yeah. And I told it 7/6/8. It's a peanut head. It's small. So not only am I in the Marine Corps, right? That's small and rare. Not only is my buddy that's there supposed to be like, I don't know, it's rare that he would come, plus from Tyler, Texas. And then the fact that I have a small head. So anyway, playing it forward, I'm like, yeah, roger that. He goes, my guide only has a cotton cover. The PX was out. Do you mind if we let him wear that? And I'll make sure that you get it back after graduation. I said, roger that, say less. So I always thought that would be a cool story, but we go into this, there's thousands of family members, there's hundreds of recruits. And anyway, I walk in, and the first person I see, my best friend. So all of that to say, he got to wear my cover. How cool is that? So I get choked up about that. But it's super awesome. So he ended up being a Marine Corps Scout Sniper. And he was on that stupid show, Surviving the Cut. And anyway, it was about his experience. He was a solid dude. He was the honor guy, the best in his platoon, like all the things that I would want for him. awesome experience. And now I have his cover in my office that he wore because it's mine. So he comes by and touches it to get familiar. Anyway.
How did you stay in touch with your family and friends?
Oh man. So I don't have it. I actually gave Dr. H one, but there's these little binders. They're green, right? It's military. If you see somebody walking with it, you know what it is. So I would have, because we didn't have cell phones that we could take over there and all that, Operation OPSEC, make sure we don't triangulate where we're doing troop movement, that whole thing. So we would have to write them all down. So I would have what would we call, it's called the bada bing. It's like an internet service. So I would just have to make phone calls old school wise. Like I felt like I was in a phone booth and all that other stuff. So I would just kind of keep my rounds just to keep people up to date, check in, and kind of just allow that support system to kind of be available when I was available and vice versa. But that was how I kind of really kind of communicated. And then there's letters. Obviously, that was the biggest thing that I loved on deployment was my sister was a teacher and she would teach third grade, stuff like that. So every deployment, they would send like cards and pictures and all these Christmas ornaments and stuff like that. They even sent us a Christmas tree because we didn't have it. So we put ammo and casings all over it, grenades, whatever, super safe. But you know, that was another way to communicate was letters and packages, care packages. Randy Travis reached out to me directly. It was when he was having a rough time, black eye and everything, and gave me some CDs. Hopefully you guys are out there, you know, staying safe. All this. He was super cool. But stuff like that. That was how we would kind of stay in contact.
That's awesome. What did you do or where did you go during your off-duty or recreational time?
Anywhere other than base. No. Well, we were in Camp Pendleton, California, so Oceanside, California. So there's beaches, things like that. It was super nice. Some of the best weather. I mean, it would only mist. I mean, it's best for good hair days. Obviously, I don't know what that's like anymore, but yeah. So beaches, cars, riding ATVs in the sand dunes, stuff like that. Go to the gun range, watch movies a lot. Just try to unwind because of the physical and mental demand that we had when we were training or working up or whatever. So when we got off. So we checked out mentally and we just tried to veg out and just kind of hang out with each other much. And then if I had the opportunity to take leave, I would go home, obviously to East Texas if I could. So.
Are there any humorous or memorable events for your RR time?
Oh man, I don't think we have enough time. But one of the first funny things outside of, well, I would say boot camp. So in boot camp, we have what's called BCGs, or birth control glasses. Okay. They're world renowned, pretty famous. They should be in a museum. So when you get there, you have your civilian goggles. Okay. So I was so excited to go to Marine Corps boot camp that they called me and said, hey, verbatim, he said, the recruiter said, some fat body failed. We have a spot ready to go. Are you ready to go? I'm like thinking next week. I just got back from like mission trips, hiking, doing all this stuff. I wanted to chill for a little bit, but I was like, yes, let's go. He's like, when do you need me? He's like, can you be here by 2? And it was like 9:15 in the morning. So I was like, all right, what do I need? He said, toothbrush, toothpaste, what you're wearing, ID, $20. Let's roll. I said, cool. That's exactly what I had. Not thinking I needed goggles. So I didn't even have contact, or I had contacts in, but I didn't have glasses. So on the way to MAPS, I had to put I didn't have a credit card. I couldn't pay for anything. The $20. They were very specific about that. Other people were bringing golf clubs and stuff. It was thrown away quickly. I'll just say that. So I get there, and then the 3rd week or 4th week comes on, and everybody's getting their glasses. Now, what you don't know about my prescription is that it's pretty unique. I'm very farsighted. So that means my eyes are about a sand dollar when you're looking at their glasses, right? So my drill instructors would have shift and duties, right? So whoever was going to have duty that night, they would switch over chain of command. So the new drill instructor would come in, and of course they've seen me with my civilian thin lenses, the real nice, chic, pretty ones, whatever. And then lo and behold, we were at evening chow. They call it nut to butt, but basically it's where we're shuffling 4 platoons in one doorway. So you're getting real close. And then the drill instructors are going up tight elbows, tight elbows. He always had discipline, moving quick, 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 quick. And then the drill instructor that just came on duty, Sergeant Walters at the time, was losing his mind. And then he stopped in mid-stride and he goes, holy shit, holy effing shit, man. He turned back around. What are those? And he's looking at my glasses, obviously, and I can't like lose my bearing and like, but he, give me those freaking damn portholes there, McGee. Da, 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 da. Holy fucking shit. Holy fucking shit. Can you see? Oh my God. What are my fucking winning lottery numbers, McGee? What are my winning lottery numbers? You can see the fucking future with these things. And he's like proud of them. And he goes to this drill instructor and this drill instructor. So they're all roasting me over, and I can't see shit. I don't even know where the door is. So I'm just over here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Something. And anyway, so that was just something that I thought was funny. So when we had visitors Thursday come up, and that's when your family comes in for the first time, when you're about getting ready to graduate, but you have one more night stay on the depot. So we go ahead and I had my mom bring some lottery tickets, and I gave my drill instructor some lottery tickets and a pair of my portholes, my BCGs. And I said, your future looks bright. He goes, so does yours. So suck less. It'll be awesome. Get away from me. That's what he said. So I said, right up.
Do you recall the day that your service ended?
I think it's still in play. But yes, I do recall it. It sucked as far as transitioning out. But honestly, I've always tried to find every few years a way to get back in and stuff like that and serve. So I felt like I delayed that. But yeah, I remember when I left Camp Pendleton, that was the day. It was a month early because I had some leave saved up. And then I drove the 22 hours to East Texas, and it was just a mess. I was already missing it. I didn't know what to really kind of think or do or expect. Of course, I had to go to job interviews and do all the things just to try to get acclimated back to civilian life. So it was a rough transition.
How did you readjust to civilian life? Did you go straight into work, or did you try to go back to school? Or?
I immediately went to work. I had some investigative stuff kind of go on. So I went to school immediately. I also got a job it sounds really bad. It was cool then, not now, but I worked for a private investigation agency. It's called ISIS Private Investigations. Not a real good move. It didn't fare well, but didn't age. But so I do primary investigations, private investigations, and then I would do those whole process serving, stuff like that. And I had more guns pulled on me doing that than I did, I think, in the Marine Corps. It was pretty epic. And then, of course, I did security, did firearm stuff, but just working in school and trying, I didn't rest at all. I should probably have, but I guess that preparation and that lack of structure, I knew I needed to get on it. I was behind. So, and every time you go into like a classroom, even to this day, I feel like Billy Madison in third grade. It was just like, man, I was so much older and just beat up compared to everybody else. Everybody had so much hope. I knew the truth. Kidding.
How did your wartime experiences change you?
In every fiber of my being. I always get that question. And whenever I think about it, I'm thinking that I've been hardened by the world and the darkness that it truly is. I saw it for what it was. And when I came back and like relationship wise, it was really hard to not impose that on others, like family, friends, dating, stuff like that. Like I was so frustrated with people not walking in the grocery store. They didn't have a purpose. They were walking slow. I was like, what are you doing? And I didn't have any clinical training. I didn't have academic training. It was just Marine Corps. Welcome to civilian life. There was like this 2 weeks TAPS course to teach you how to tie a tie, but that was it. We were, it was a shell shock. They teach you how to break everything down and build you up into a Marine. They don't teach you how to become a civilian after that. The change is forever. You can't unsee this stuff or hear this stuff, but you have to modify and use what you have. And I felt like that was an opportunity for me to, when I was transitioning back into civilian life, to utilize the skills that the Marine Corps taught me. It did not always compute. However, it was something that I knew it changed me forever. I couldn't always go back, but I wanted to use it as a tactical advantage to be able to position myself in a way that I'm going to work harder, learn as much as I can, as fast as I can, and put myself in a position to serve or follow somebody that I respect or want to be led by, so that I can, the hopes in transitioning into leading. So everything that I do today it's based on that. I mean, that's my primary focus as I have a group private practice now. I do non-traditional and traditional type therapies. We do a lot of trainings here on campus for veterans and faculty members and staff, and help with my research efforts and also translation into first responders as well. There's a very saturated kind of market there because they're so similar. So with that being said, that was something that I felt like it changed me forever. At first it was bad, but over time, if I was able to survive and learn and adapt and develop these skills that were essential for not only my growth, but everybody around me, then I was in a good position. So it's changed me forever. And also how I respond to my wife. She hasn't been hardened by the world, and I thank God for that. Same thing with my kids, obviously. And then whenever you start to look at all the things on how I parent now, it's awesome because I had both negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement. So anyway, I don't think I would change it at all, probably.
Are you still able to stay in contact with any of the friends you made on your trips?
Absolutely. There hasn't been many people because I'm the conduit, I think, of my friend group. It's because I go out of my way because I know how important it is to stay connected. So every time I drive to Stephenville to teach or my private practice in Grapevine, Colleyville, I'm always calling. So I'm utilizing that dead space to stay connected, which is fulfilling for me. It keeps me up to date, but it also keeps them up to date and also allows us the opportunity to check in and be able to collaborate or set up a family retreat or vacation later. It's a good thing. I think it's been an essential kind of element that's kept me above ground. I'll tell you that. Isolation kills more veterans than anything. Lack of purpose kills veterans more than anything. So finding both of those throughout the process has been a blessing.
Have you attended any reunions, or is it more just your phone calls that you?
No, I didn't like them then. I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna like them now. No, I really haven't. I've been really trying to stay busy. We just had the 20th year a couple of years ago for Fallujah. And a lot of my people that I used to be in charge of is retiring and stuff like that. So I've reached out. We haven't really connected unless it's like events. So not like a big reunion, but it's rather, I didn't even go to my high school reunion. I for sure didn't like them then. I for sure probably not gonna like them now. I mean, everybody in here probably feels that a little bit, but to answer your question, I don't go to reunions. I'm intentional with my time and access. So I go out of my way to try to build that connection if I can. And if they pick up, and plus it's seasonal. So some people are doing great or some people are doing bad and you don't know what you're kind of getting into. So you just stay consistent.
Thank you, Anna. So what you've just seen is you've seen a little bit of an oral history with one of our veterans. And obviously there are similarities with our community members, but the questions are very different. What you didn't hear is you didn't hear the questions that Anna was about to get to related to legacy, right? The kinds of things that our veteran would speak to related to what they want people to take away from their service, what they would say to future generations, right? Whether they serve or don't serve. And these kinds of things, they really round out a veteran's interview. Dr. Mallory is willing to share, and I think both his profession have equipped him with the skills and the tools to be able to tap into, even if Anna would have probed more, to tap into some of the things related to his combat service. Other veteran interviews are not like this, right? It takes a lot more questioning. It takes a lot more, not that we're not being sensitive to Dr. Mallory, but it takes a lot more sensitivity. And I've had on multiple occasions veterans reach out to me after the interview saying, hey, there's more I want to talk about. You think about the development of trust that Anna mentioned, right? We're very comfortable, right? I share a wall, an office wall with Dr. Mallory. So we're always around each other. Yeah. So there's comfortability here, but that's not always the case. In fact, it's rarely the case. And we meet these folks, we put a microphone on them, we put a light on them, we turn a camera on, and then all of a sudden boom, we're into asking questions about where they were born, who their parents are, and then whether or not they served in combat, if they would like to share any sorts. Like, there's just a lot there. So if one of the things I know we don't have a lot of time, but just really quickly, Dr. Mallory, would you share just a couple of quick words about the connection between oral history and mental health? Because that is a major connection. We're just not celebrating veterans on Memorial Day and Veterans Day. So if you could just share 60 seconds on that.
100%. So basically when that comes to basic foundational pillars, everybody wants to be heard in their own way. Not everybody has the opportunity to have a venue to where they feel safe or wanted, needed, or valued rather than judged or ridiculed for their time in service, the actions that they did or did not do. That's why a lot of veterans get triggered at even just the mere asking of what was your MOS. A lot of people think, well, are you judging me? What does that look like? So again, in a situation like this, mental health wise, you got to talk about it. There's talk therapy, there's cognitive behavioral therapy, there's all kinds of different types of therapy that utilizes this talking narrative to really help break down walls, build trust, identify 30,000 foot view concepts that helps them heal. When you tell your story, every time you tell it, you get desensitized. This is a fact. So by giving their oral history, they're reliving it, but they're processing it again. They're also being able to allow this built up wall to become more of a revolving door so their loved ones can hear and have access to their real stories that they didn't want to share with them because they might have burdened said family member because of what they've been through or experienced. So a lot of things are preventing our veterans from opening up, finding support, finding resources. They would rather put up a wall, deal with it themselves because the culture we've created in the military and veteran culture, the sign of weakness to ask for help. And that's why the stigma's there. And that's why they don't reach out when they need to, or kind of ask for help when they need to, or look for resources when they need to. This is a gateway to the mental health game to allow them the opportunity to share their stories to the next generation of Americans or anybody in the world, really, that will listen to it because there's something of value there. You can learn from that generation. I mean, it's essential. I think it's something that as a generation that's coming up and kind of like this is our prime time to set up the foundation for the next generation to kind of build on. It starts with this. It starts with the education side of it, being available, being exposed, having access to this types of stuff consistently. And a lot of veterans don't look for stuff because they want to go to their island of misfit toys because they don't like people. They don't like to travel. They don't have that desire to be around frustration or conflict without potentially needing some tools, techniques, strategies that you can get in the mental health field. So again, I utilize non-traditional therapies just as much as traditional therapies because not every veteran wants to sit in a room with somebody they don't know, talk about their worst day on a couch that they've never been on before in their life. It takes time to develop and foster that relationship. It takes time for that individual to be ready to handle that, to know how to express themselves and to get activated that it's okay, that it's actually a normal response to trauma. And it's okay not to be okay. And even though you're going to struggle through this potential like interview, however, just think of the impact that that will leave behind. It will spread like a shockwave throughout the veteran community and also the family members of gain so much. There's many of us that have never cried in front of our family. You know what I mean? So a lot of kids, a lot of family members, a lot of veterans. I mean, this is the gateway to really opening up another layer of support, another layer to introduce them to a traditional and non-traditional type therapy. And through academia and through support and events like this, you have that opportunity. Same thing with the project. Being able to have a revolving door of support and also a venue for you when you're ready. We're here. Give me what you got when you got it. I'll take it. So that's kind of the mindset I wish we would have more of, but I hope that answered your question.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Mallory. We appreciate your time.